of always reticent to comment about other nations' foreign policies, but we were a little bit unsettled a couple of weeks ago when there was a nosedive in the relation between Pretoria, Tshwane, and Washington. We are happy to say that President Trump and President Cyril Ramaphosa may soon be meeting, and that the ruckus which may have been brewing between the two nations will be settled by discussion. But even more pleasing is the fact that the Afrikaners have reached out to the ANC and they had a meeting. We continue to emphasize that Afrikaners are Africans. We want them to be treated in the same way as any other African, because if we treat them like that, we also show to the world that even if Russians come to Zimbabwe and settle, they will be treated like Zimbabweans. Even if Chinese come to Zimbabwe and settle, they will be treated like Zimbabweans. Even if Indians, who came with the British to build the railway line in the 19th century, they've settled. We never feel that they are aliens, they are Zimbabwean. This is the society which the president wants, very, very tolerant in a global village. Because as we converge through technology, through commerce, through other aspects of human business activity and social activity, we need to realize that every human being is created in the image of God. So ZANU-PF's ideology is to be non-racial. That's why when we were fighting, we could never say we were fighting against white people. We said we are fighting against racism. Imagine I'm landing at Moscow airport or Beijing airport, and because I'm being oppressed by Smith, I tell them, can you help me to fight white people in Zimbabwe? The next minute I'll be back on the plane without any help. So ZANU-PF was very careful as a party to make sure that we remain a non-racial, inclusive party in outlook. And this is why we are so happy about what is going on now. The prospect of the Afrikaners reaching out to become part of the citizenry of South Africa, not as exceptions, but as tolerated minority with their own culture. I always remind them, some of them, America speaks English. South Africa is a real Afrikaner language. If you are going away to South America because you have been said to speak English, you are going to actually waste country where your language will disappear. But in South Africa, if they tolerate each other and accommodate each other as we should be, as minorities, they will make sure that Afrikaner as a language which was founded on the African soil remains forever part of our civilization for generations to come. Why would you want a language to die? Especially when the people who speak it are some of the most active and rewarding African workers and business people. If you want to be good examples of successful African business on the global stage, if I put my finger, I will probably count all of them as Afrikaners in my 10 fingers, or maybe 80%. So it means they've got a positive role to engender a business culture in Africa, but also to be case studies of universities in Africa of what Africa can do in global business. So this idea of South Africa reaching out and accommodating each other makes it easy for those from outside who may misconstrue our differences to take advantage and try to divide us. I think President Trump, we hope, will revisit his attitude towards the South African government because of what is going on among the population of South Africa. So this is an issue because South Africa is an important business player in the sub-region. If there's stability in South Africa, it means more chances of Zimbabwe and to prosper. We also took note of a very successful Zimbabwe International Trade Fair, and we thank the committee of the trade fair led by Chairman Busisa. But particular thanks go to President Chapo. It was mentioned yesterday. We were so happy that our sister Republic of Mozambique sent its youthful president to Zimbabwe to come and officially open the Zimbabwe International Trade Fair 2025. It was noted that in the past, because of the economic meltdown, the tendency was for government departments to be the ones which were occupying stands. Now that has changed. It is much more of businesses who are occupying stands. And the SME sector is doing things which this economy never thought of. When I talked about the gold SME sector, I also need to talk of the general SME sector because it is contributing 60% of the national GDP. By the way, the SME sector is an important cog in the national economy. It delivers goods and services for the higher echelons of economic activity. When Toyota assembles the Toyota car as a unit, you can be assured that there are millions of others who have been working to make all the components which then come back together. And these are not done in huge factories. These are done at an SME level. So we are changing the outlook of the perception of the SME sector so that people appreciate the vital role which they make in national economic activity. They are important. They are the ones who have made sure that bread is brought to families every day. They are the ones who say, make sure that children get educated. They are the ones who are making sure that our industries are fed with a lot of the things which we would want to make sure that they succeed. So the SME sector president is very happy, and he made particular mention of its contribution to the national economy. Do we have other issues? Yes. We also want to note that the president yesterday left for Russia. The reason is that it is the anniversary of the victory against fascism. You remember that there was an epic war in Europe between 1939 and 1945 when negative nationalist sentiments from Germany in particular at that particular time, we shouldn't be mentioning the time because things have changed. The Germans have denounced Nazism as an ideology to drive their politics, the exclusionary ideology of Nazism, which is akin to apartheid. The country which was at the forefront of this major victory was Russia, because it was the victim of aggression on a grand scale. But the heroic Russian people rose and paid a very heavy price because of the technological discrepancy between Germany and Russia. But at the end of the day, in 1945, Russia was at the epicenter of the great victory of the democracies against Hitlerite Nazism. So our president recognized this day as being very important in the historical calendar of the nations. It would have been very dark if Hitlerite Nazism had taken control of a major European country like Germany, but taken control of the world. There are actually attitudes about even racial profiling of other races. So we celebrate the Russian victory as a victory for humanity, all humanity. And the president went to join a raft of other leaders in Moscow to celebrate this day. And the good thing is that with the advent of the Trump victory in America, there is a new possibility that the European tendency to fight. I don't know why Europeans love to fight. But anyway, we hope that this scourge of war between Russia and Ukraine can finally be addressed in a fair way, which recognize the legitimate interests of those countries and their security concerns. And I think the Trump administration is doing its best to make sure that this happens. There may be challenges along the way, but this war should stop so that resources can be developed for human progress rather than for destruction. But all the same, a raft of leaders are recognizing the new global dispensation where there is less acrimony between the superpowers, the two major superpowers. And they are all gathered at this great day. And in Zimbabwe, the ambassador of Russia is celebrating this Victory Day on Saturday. And I will be there, and I'm sure many of my colleagues from the party will be there. And for our own reason too, we were supported by Russia during our war. But beyond that, Russia was the first country to democratize the gun, to give it to other nations other than European countries. The Berlin Conference had created a gun cartel among European countries because they had got the advanced weaponry of the gun ahead of everybody. So a cartel was created to make sure that no other nations besides Europeans keep control of the gun so that they can load it and enslave and colonize others. Then the Russian people, in a great victory again in 2017, the Bolshevik Revolution, they broke away from the European cartel of denying guns to other countries. That's why the Chinese could fight and win against the Japanese. But that's why also Africa could eventually equalize the military equation, the military imbalance between Europe and its surrogates in Africa and Africans in Zimbabwe and Southern Africa. They democratized the gun, the Russians. That's why the AK-47 is the prominent weapon of the world. A very, very creative genius, Mr. Kalashnikov, invented that weapon, and it is all over the world. So a little bit of Russian history on this important day, celebrating our great friendship with the Russian people and their contributions in general to the progress of humanity. Another issue. I think I tend to speak sometimes too much and I don't give people a chance to talk. If something